Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick. How is everyone going? Yes, it's finally here. I'm making a video on the UK Systems Open. First of all, a huge thank you to everyone that showed me the results. I got quite a few messages on the Facebook here on YouTube. Yes, I didn't miss it, guys, don't worry. We just had a very busy week last week with all the information coming out of Star Wars Celebration, plus working on all the regular videos, that kind of stuff. I basically need a full day's work to make these top 16 videos. They do take a little bit more time than most, so I appreciate everyone's patience on that. And yes, we're going to talk about the UK Systems Open, take another look at the meta of the extended format, and first of all, a huge congratulations to the X-Wing community over there in the UK. In Milton Keynes this year, it is for the second year running the largest X-Wing tournament in the world. It was around about 500 players last year. This year, it was 562 players. That is a seriously good effort. You guys should be proud of yourself. Seriously, well done. I really should consider trying to go to this one year. And yes, in terms of having a look at the meta, there simply is no better resource to look at, so I simply cannot ignore this. Now, the tournament had a top 64 cut. Like we do in all of my videos, we're going to look at the top 16. So yes, this is only a fraction of the cut. Just bear in mind, this is like a quarter of the entire cut. So it's a really, really refined look at the lists that actually made it to the top. But this is absolutely the cream of the crop at this tournament. And looking at other tournament results, this is pretty much in keeping with what we're seeing. Although this is the first time we're looking at the extended format with all 7 factions. So that is something to have a think about. In fact, let's just start off with the faction breakdown. We didn't actually see either of the 2 new factions, but they did make a presence in the top 64 cut overall. What is cool though is we had a couple of scum lists, and they're actually quite interesting, so I look forward to talking about those in a second. Apart from that, yeah, pretty bog standard. Top of the pack is Rebel and Empire for pretty much the same reasons as the last tournaments. 3 resistance lists, no first order lists this time. But considering they're only ever putting sort of 2 or 3 lists every top 16 cut, it's not really that surprising. They're going to drop out every now and then, and considering we have 7 factions now, I very much doubt that we're going to see consistent results from all 7 factions. But hopefully after the next points change, yes, it's not just Rebel and Empire dominating to the extent that they are. Taking a look at the sizes of the ships, we had a total of 53 small ships, 10 medium ships, and just 1 little lowly Millennium Falcon as our large base ships. We had a total of 1 squad with 2 ships, which was actually the winning squad. A total of 2 squads with 3 ships, a whopping 10 squads of 4 ships, 1 squad of 5, and 2 of 6, so definitely a leaning towards the higher numbers. But yes, as I said before, winning squad had 2 ships, so it's a very odd set of stats to have a look at. The 4 of builds seemingly on just about every faction seems to be where the balance is sitting right now in X-Wing, which is not surprising when we have a look at the lists, although there is one archetype in particular that's really throwing those stats out. Yes, and if we have a look at the ships flown, you can see exactly why. Yep, TIE Phantom still firmly on top with a 13 of here, 9 RZ-2 A-Wings, 6 TIE Fighters, all of them in one list, 5 OVs of the T-65 and B-Wing, thanks to the presence of Princess Leia, 4 T-70s, U-Wings and K-Wings, 3 Skirg Bombers, 3 Z-95 Headhunters on the Rebellion, a couple of RZ-2 A-Wings, and 1 OVs all of the Millennium Falcon TIE Interceptor, TIE Advanced X-1 Escapecraft Fire Spray, Fang Fighter, and Y-Wing. So yes, TIE Phantom is still firmly on top, and I think it's pretty safe to say at this point, and I mentioned this in the last video, that we have gotten to a point where we're collecting data where we can pretty safely say that yes, FFG do need to have a serious look at this. I'm not a fan of emergency points changes, and I think what it ultimately comes down to is the other factors that FFG mentioned in the article when they did change the points on the Upsilon, namely things like negative play experience, and if that is a major factor that FFG are looking at, then yes, this may be worth an emergency points change, but I sort of err on the side of trying to avoid that where possible. In fact, I used this exact same graphic in the last video I made, just changed the names because, yeah, a bunch of Duke Sigma Squadron Aces, one of them without a talent or one of them with crack shot. It's pretty bog standard, it's ultra efficient. I ultimately feel like the only way to make this balance is to basically only make it so one can take Duke, or I don't know what needs to be done here, but I just feel like this is too efficient. Certainly, it seems way too efficient from the metadata that we have anyway. Moving on to the rest of the stuff we saw on the Empire, another list with a TIE Phantom actually had a Whisper make it. Hasn't been seeing a whole heap of play post points change. Switching out in the standard build Vader for Fifth Brother seems like a pretty decent thing. Vader with Fire Control System, Sun Tefel with Predator. Yeah, pretty standard Imperial Aces stuff. Always a fun list. Also, we had a real dedicated TIE Swarm. Now, this is really cool. We've been seeing a few things like this crop up in play here and there, but this is the first time, at least on this channel, that we've spoken about it in extended play in the major part of the X-Wing meta. Really cool to see in 2nd edition people tend to be favouring named pilots over like spamming Crackshot or something like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think we can all agree that named pilots and fun abilities is a more fun interactive experience for both players, and it's really cool to see this kind of stuff actually make it into meta play. Okay, moving over to the Scum faction, a couple of lists we see here. This top one here is pretty much indicative of the major Scum list that we're seeing in terms of any meta play right now. The Escape Craft, Boba Fett, plus an Ace. We've seen a lot of old Terok. I myself have been playing around with Guri a lot. Here's one with Fen Rao, and in order to fit Fen Rao, we've had to strip back on the rest of the list. Often, for example, we see Lando in the Escape Craft and a bit of a heavier build on Boba Fett. But if you want Fen Rao, yep, this is the kind of stuff you have to do. And Fen Rao, not irrelevant right now in terms of meta play. That Initiative 6 seems to be more relevant than it usually is. Also, we have a really cool dedicated Dre Renthal list here, which I'm really liking the look of. Interesting, we have turrets on all of those Skirk bombers, and 2 of them have decided to take Ion Cannon turret. If you went to dorsal turret on each of them, you could actually put a turret on Dre Renthal at the same time. Not that I'd tell this player how to fly their list, there's obviously a certain amount of value to be had in ion control. But remember, if you have a turret on Dre Renthal, yes, you have another arc to activate her ability out of. It does come down to the way you fly, ultimately. This is really cool. I really like this. We have been seeing a lot of just Skirk spams. Not in terms of like top tier cuts, but they do crop up every now and then. Whenever I have a look at these top cuts, I always make sure to scroll down a bit and have a look at some of the other list, specifically with the Scum faction, because they haven't been making cuts recently. And this is something that people are really playing around with. It's a lot to shoot through. It's a lot of firepower. And yeah, it looks really cool. I should actually play around with this myself at some stage. Okay, moving on to the Resistance, and we had these 3 lists here. I'm basically a broken record at this stage. We have A-Wings and X-Wings in whatever combination and whatever size builds you want. These bottom 2 lists are basically the same. Main difference is Nien Nunb on this bottom list has Black 1. Yeah, I know the X-Wings also have Jamming Beam, but who cares? It's a free upgrade and you'll basically never use it anyway. Seems like a really fun combination. I like that the Resistance is favouring named pilots. Also, the spam A-Wings, having those Initiative 1s as blockers is a lot of fun. And yes, overall there is a huge preference for Heroic. This seems to be basically the premier talent on the Resistance, which is what you should expect out of talents that have that kind of restriction on them. We're still at a stage with the Resistance where their big ships are, in terms of meta play, basically useless, which is a bit sad to see, so hopefully there'll be a bit of a rebalance the next points change and we start to see some Star Fortresses and Falcons. And yes, very soon we have the Transport entering into the format, so we have hopefully a very viable crew option on this format with really powerful crew like Han and C-3PO. Really cool to see what these X-Wings and A-Wings can do alongside that kind of support role. But for the time being, yep, just efficient brawlers, blockers, aces, all that kind of stuff. Really cool to see. Really dig how this faction's going. Moving over to the Rebellion, and yes, the Rebellion was our winning faction. Yes, and this first batch of stuff we're going to look at is basically Princess Leia .list. I've spoken about this ad nauseum at this stage. Yes, you can chuck a bunch of named pilots or just a bunch of generics, and it seems to work quite effectively. The platform does matter. U-Wings, X-Wings, and B-Wings all have very powerful red maneuvers, which combos beautifully with Leia. And yeah, the ceiling on this card is just so utterly absurd. The repositioning you can do here is just so powerful. This top list, Luke Townsend, was actually the runner-up. And if we move over to this list here, yes, more named pilots. The 3 of with the 2 X-Wings is quite interesting. Very curious to see how that went. And also, yes, you can just spam out a whole heap of Z95s. I've already spoken about the power of this card, and the fact that it works in so many different ship archetypes is just indicative of how powerful it is right here. Once again, yes, click the link up here if you want to watch that video where I explain that ad nauseum. For the time being, let's move on. We have one more list before the winning list to take a look at, and this is 4 K-Wings. Up until this point, we've pretty much only seen a Siege to Ketu see any kind of meta play, and that still is quite a rare thing to see, so yeah, spamming K-Wings, really cool. Barrage rockets for a decent attack and proton bombs to just sink damage. Sabine Wren is really spicy here. Kind of reminds me of the old K-Wing list from 1st edition when they first came out. I'm guessing this player must be very good with bombs. A decent amount of firepower, decent amount of bombing. Like that. I like that it's different. I like that it's not just another Princess Leia list. Looks really interesting. Hopefully we do see a bit more of the K-Wing in the future, because it's threatening to do things every now and then. People have been asking me to talk about it in my Junkyard series, and I don't know if it's quite there in terms of badness, if that's a term I'm allowed to use. But yeah, again, nice to see some spicy lists. And yes, moving over to the winner here with Jack Mooney with Han Solo, Jake Farrell. Han Solo has Trick Shot, R2-D2 Crew, Kanan Jarrus, Luke Skywalker Gunner, Millennium Falcon title, Inertial Dampeners, Engine Upgrades. Jake has Outmaneuver and Lone Wolf. A lot of the reasons that people were messaging me about this tournament is because you wanted to see my reaction to this. And yeah, awesome. This is really cool. It's a list that will work well with the right player. I did actually make the point of watching the final before I made this video so I could actually comment on the way that Jack plays. And the one thing that really struck me when watching that game was he was very good at controlling range. And with all the bonuses that Han can get, activating Trick Shot, just getting better shots. And yes, let's also address the fact that we have a winning system open list with the Luke Skywalker Gunner card. See, he ruined the game, I told you! No, it's fine. Luke is very weird. Way before 2nd edition came out, I made a video on him. Because the ability is very much against the ethos of 2nd edition, we don't tend to be able to do this kind of stuff like move arcs and that kind of nonsense with perfect information. That's why he's so expensive. He's 24 points. I think he was actually 30 points when 2nd edition first came out. And pretty much when you have an effect that is that powerful and the points are weighted that heavily against him so he doesn't see consistent meta play, he's either going to be training wheels for newbies at LGSs, or he's going to do broken stuff. There is no in-between when you have that kind of tax on a ability that powerful. And no, guys, I don't think Fat Han, or in this case, Obese Han, is going to take over the meta. I seriously do think this is a case of a particular playstyle really benefiting the player. And a serious congratulations to Jack. This is a fantastic effort to win a tournament with this kind of list. Just really cool. A lot of real power and agency to just get the most value out of Han. If you are that good at controlling range, that good at controlling your shots, that good at calling the way your opponent can fly, then all power to you. Again, we're looking at 2-ship lists. The biggest downside with stuff like this is not being able to make those calls, not making the best decisions most of the time, because one bad decision and you can lose Jake, or one bad decision and Han can get like hammered by 3 different ships. And the game is just slowly moving out of your favour at this stage. However, if you are the kind of player who is very strategic, this is the kind of thing that you can actively benefit from. And I'm really happy to see this, because something that is actually beneficial to a certain playstyle, something that is beneficial to the planning of a player, I think is a positive thing for the game. And I'm very happy to see this, and hopefully other things like it take major tournaments. So again, congrats to Jack, great job, mate. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for watching. If there's any other major tournaments you'd like me to cover, please feel free to mention it in the comments. A huge shout out to the Scum and Villainy podcast over on the List Fortress website. You guys do a fantastic job. I will link the page on that website for all the data on this tournament. If you want to read past the top 16, please go there and jump on their Patreon if you want to give them a bit of support. They do a fantastic job with this. Cannot thank them enough. In the meantime, guys, do not forget to like and subscribe. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Reddit. Please consider supporting my Patreon as well. Thank you so much to all of my existing patrons. I'll catch you guys in the next video.